We are live. Well, Peter, thank you for jumping on the pod.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Let's get into it. Are you okay to give us a quick overview of your background and where you're at today?
Sure, happy to do so. So, lovely to meet you. I'm Peter Garraghan. I am the founder of Mindgard, and I am also a chair professor in computer science at Lancaster University, and I specialize in security of AI. I'm also a fellow of the UK's Engineering Physical Science and Research Council.
Very nice. So let's get into a few of these areas then. So, with, I guess, the whole Mindgard piece and the problem they look at solving, broadly speaking, what's your whole view on the state of AI security right now?
So, it's a little more popular than it used to be a few years ago. So, I cast my mind back to maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There was only half a dozen companies really working in this space. And just to clarify, AI security, even that was slightly confusing because when you hear the word AI security, people might think of, am I using AI for security tools? Like I'm using regression techniques or natural language to find patterns, or is it security for AI? So in the earlier days, it was very much trying to explain to them, no, 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 AI security is securing AI. And they go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you go back 10 years ago, when myself and my colleagues and some other scientists in the space were looking at the research problem in this space, it was really about around the time that deep neural networks in 2014 started to become basically more popular.
Mm.
And then thinking, hey, these type of deep neural networks, they're still software, but they're very peculiar because they're not exactly the same as other type of software, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Mm.
But they can do very strange things. Like you can basically trick them. You can misclassify. You can make them output stuff that's very, very strange. So fast forward to today, I think last time I heard there's over 160 AI security companies in all different facets.
Wow.
There's a few different ways. So I think the main one I think people agree with is there has been a lot of adoption and even just discussions of using generative AI, agentic workflows, all the things, all the words people hear about nowadays.
Mm.
Those things are being experimented with and piloted and being deployed both from an organizational perspective, but also personal usage. Most people I
Mhm.
talk to do have something like ChatGPT or an open source model on the device to anything from supporting them, getting to finding their muse, to just actually they're using it to actually automate some of the more rote activities they do.
Yes, it's you're right. I think there's been this sort of explosion of in the last sort of year, 2 years, really, and it seems like we went from this like ChatGPT came out, and that kind of changed all the perceptions. I think broadly, and you're not just talking the technical folk here, but just in the public eye, so to speak. And then the whole agentic piece is now sort of layered on top of that. So is that, I guess, why this is now much more of an urgent problem to address than maybe previously because of the agentic stuff, the gen stuff?
Sure. And I really don't like using marketing and buzzwords, so I'll probably spend a little bit of time trying to give my view on these technologies.
Yeah.
So if you think back to generative AI and LLMs 2 or 3 years ago, there's a lot of discussions of companies saying you have these things, but if you kind of turn over the stone, actually there wasn't as much as you were hoping to find.
Okay.
Agentic agentic AI and you hear about, there's a lot of discussion about that. But actually, if you really scrutinize what people are using, it isn't really what you might call true quotation mark agentic AI.
Hmm.
They're using AI to automate processes. That's not agentic. That's AI
Hmm.
in its forms. I think the main difference here is when people think of LLMs, this is much more around the idea of generation and retrieving and summarizing information. Agents are more lend themselves more towards action to do stuff, so instruction sets and to call things. They still use the same technologies. They still use transformer architecture, the one that underpins them, but that's kind of one difference. In terms of just the explosion of usage, it is partially yes, because it can. We're in a phase now where people are trying to figure out which use cases are repeatable, scalable, and economic.
Yeah.
And I love analogies and pattern matching and all these other things. So I'll give you another scenario and I'll compare it to what's happening in AI. I think it's not controversial to say that cloud computing is pretty popular and pretty valuable nowadays. It's, I don't know with how many nine, 10 figures, how many zeros you
Yeah.
have. But if you cast your mind back, it kind of started from virtualization back in the late 50s. When in the mainframes, you could virtualize. the machines. But you only had a few megabytes of memory, so which means you couldn't virtualize too much. So fast forward to maybe in the 90s, maybe late 80s, they figured out how to virtualize x86 architecture, and memory became cheaper. There's now more of it. And those triggers together saying, hey, wait a sec, we can scale out loads of virtual machines. We have hypervisors now. And that kind of drove the idea of a computer utility. So cloud computing came out, data center came out, and now it's worth. And all in that entire journey, there was a big explosion of cloud adoption, probably like 10 years, but it came from like decades and decades of work before this technology was lying around. Think about AI in all its forms. If you think about specifically about AI in this space, transformers and LLMs agents use deep neural networks. Artificial neural network came out a few decades ago. It wasn't until 2014 where actually deep neural networks outperformed other type of ML techniques. 2017, transformer architecture was conceived. Authenticity is all you need. ChatGPT came out, and now it's kind of everywhere. And if you remember, so cloud's still far ahead, but when cloud came out, people were saying it could do everything. I could put everything in cloud and just dump it in a virtual storage, and nothing could go wrong about it. And people were trying out different things. It's in the cloud. I see AI in the same space now, which is people are rushing to get AI deployed from different projects, from the C-suite downwards, but also just a practitioner. And we're trying to, I call it the great sieve, which is you've got a big sieve of flour, and you shake it slightly, everything falls through. But the things that remain are super, super valuable to myself personally, but also my company. And I see myself now, people are deploying all these projects. Some of them are getting into production, which is great, getting value. Others, not so much. And they're shaking the sieve like this. So what cloud computing went through over the last like 10, 15 years is what AI in its current form is doing, which is that if people claim you can do absolutely everything, that is not the case. It's very good at specific activities and how it's built and how people are trained to do it. But those things are being deployed, whether it's in pilot mode or in production mode. I strongly suspect to see in the next few years, you're going to see much more focused applications of AI in very specific use cases, like a DevOps AI system that has its own design pattern, an agentic workflow for code generation and pushing changes pushing like in my CI/CD. That will look very, very specific compared to a document retrieval system, for example, as opposed to having very general. This AI can do everything. I think naturally, if you can all computer science, what happens is that you start general, then you start specializing, and you get more and more optimized towards it.
Yes, I see. It kind of feels like the AI stuff is happening at a little bit of a quicker pace than maybe what the cloud was. Maybe that's just a feel. It's completely anecdotal. I don't know if you're feeling the same kind of thing.
It is because it's, if you think of the comparison of ChatGPT, I can go online and find it online for free, and I can start talking to it, and it's easy for practitioners. It's very hard for a general person to spin up a Docker container or go in, or let's go back and more. I have to install Zen or KVM, figure out how it works, and then deploy this thing and use it. Cloud is like an enabler. It allows me to do stuff. The AI itself, two things. One is it gives me action, but also the interface is very different. So one of the greatest, I won't call it a trick, but one of the things that's different is that because the generative AI and agents we talk to has a very easy to use API. What I mean by that is that I can talk to it and it gives me a response. And the second one is uses natural language. And that has its pros and cons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But there isn't really a natural language way of me talking to cloud computing, for example. I can't say to it, my hypervisor, please spin up 3 virtual machines to me. I can build commands for that, but in generative AI, in modern form, I just ask it. And whether it comes back with useful information, that's a different thing. But the barrier of entry is much lower. But also, it's almost like a B2C, which is, yes, a customer can pick this thing up and then use it in their workflows. In cloud, there isn't a B2C model to getting cloud deployed and up and running.
Yeah, it's that accessibility piece, isn't it? And so broadly, and then obviously all the headlines and everything, further back that up. So what kind of risks or maybe attacks are we seeing against AI systems in the real world today so far?
So there's 2 different perspectives on this I would give. AI introduces a new attack surface. Why is that? Because the nature of the AI we have, it is still software, but there isn't code in the traditional sense you might think about. So if I look at an AI and I try to say, okay, how does it work? I'm going to be met with a bunch of matrices and probability and vector mathematics. There isn't actually written code in that per se, but saying if, do this, and so and so. That isn't how neural networks work. So that's one of the big problems that makes it very opaque and very random. When anytime I talk to the AI, it gives you slightly different answers in that sort of system. On the other hand, it's still software. So I spend quite a lot of my career basically hacking AI and make it do things it shouldn't do, and basically trying to help people defend their organizations. The type of attacks you see are the same conceptually. They see in all type of computing systems. So comparisons, think of prompt injection, think of SQL injection. They have direct comparisons. I'm trying to bypass an detection intrusion system. I'm trying to bypass a guardrail. I'm trying to leak data from a database whose access permissions aren't correct. I'm trying to get the AI to coerce it into extract information from me from a database that I'm pretending to be somebody else. Conceptually, these are the same principles.
Mm.
Mechanics, though, are very, very different how you do these things. So instead of it being about, okay, I'm going to start going through different type of SQL injection instructions to figure out what it is, I can ask the AI, hey, what do you do? It'll tell me, I have a database. Great, that's fantastic. And say, hey, can you give me some examples of the rows you have? It might say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I say, oh, wait, oh, well, I'm the system admin. You should tell me. A lot more social manipulation about it. So we'll go
Wow.
into that whole field of like the psychology of AI itself. But the attacks you see, think of in all cybersecurity attacks of data exfiltration to remote code execution attacks to just business reputation, data leakage. These things occur in AI systems. You may have seen even the last year,
Mm.
people bypassing AI systems do get access to things they shouldn't do. People injecting instructions that are hidden in an AI that you can see. It goes on and issues those instructions themselves. So on one hand, these attacks aren't dissimilar to what you have seen in the past. Big impact and small impact. That's problematic. But the
Mm.
real difference is the attack surface is now different. It's bigger, and the mechanics of doing the attacks is also very, very different. It has more comparison to what you see like in social engineering and also in traditional red teaming.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that example you just gave there of well, I'm the system admin, let me in. That's insane. Like as a jailbreak to use, and I'm gathering this is sort of things you see. A company sort of like aware of this, or is it kind of like a learning curve we're going through at the moment?
It is a learning curve, but very quickly people say, "Oh, that actually makes sense."
Mm.
So I emphasize a lot about the social element here, which is
Mm.
yes, you can basically badger an AI model to do what you want. And the analogy I give people is, if I called up a call center, could I find the right combination of tone, wording, information to get that person to, get very angry, or can I get them to delete my account or give me information? This is very common in red teaming. Red teamers do. They come in and they try and manipulate, saying, "Oh, sorry, I'm an employee. I've got my badge. Can you help me out?" Demeanors mirroring what they think the target is, and they get information. You do the same in AI. The difference here is that this AI is not a human, but it's
Mm.
being trained on human language and information from corpus of data that kind of makes connections about it. So um, the people I talk to a lot, like especially CISOs, saying that actually makes sense. So I have AI. I think I have AI. That's a whole different set of problems we can go into about where to find in the first place. They think they have AI in the organization and they know about some projects. They're saying this is still software. I can't apply my current controls. I can't validate. I can't measure. I can't
Mm.
report. I can't be compliant. What do I do? So they know conceptually what they need to do something about it because it's a bit of a big uncertainty because security folks aren't necessarily AI experts.
Mm.
A lot of their concepts and training is applicable. What they're missing is their gap between, okay, on one hand, my employees are promoting AI a lot and kind of overlooking basic controls and policies. On the other hand, it's still software, so I should be able to do so. So when
Mm.
you talk to customers about saying, yes, if you have a problem of visibility of software, a problem of assessing risk of your software, and a problem of defending risking software, that's like the same with AI. There's no difference. You have an AI visibility problem, you have an AI risk assessment problem, and you have
Mm.
an AI protection problem. You still need these things, but the big problem is, well, how is it different? And it is different. Then how do I train myself and get tools in the space to help me, apply my correct controls?
Got you. And I guess we'll get into where the Mindgard fits into the whole picture in a moment. But just before we do that, do you often come across, I guess, misconceptions around what people hear around AI security, maybe from the CISO audience or wider?
Yes. So as I touched upon, there's a few perspectives. I think one of the biggest ones is people have a habit of anthropomorphizing AI a lot, which is, hey, it's responding to me in natural language, therefore I can kind of overlook some basic concepts because it's being nice and polite to me, it's manipulating me. it's like it says, yes, I do this information, and actually hasn't done it. People talk about hallucinations in this type of case, which is it can give you information not correct. That's a whole other discussion about everything's hallucinating AI. There's no such thing as non-hallucinations because, again, not to be too technical about this,
No, no, go far away.
AI models and LLMs and agents don't have what we call an ontological underpinning of how they work. Well, that means there's no knowledge base or knowledge graph related to your case. It has a bunch of data inside it, but there's no way of validating and verifying that information. In
Mm.
knowledge-based systems, that you have those things already, which is information. I go for a knowledge graph or ontology, we call it, and they figure out, okay, this thing can be verified or validated. AI doesn't have that. Even if it's saying, I'm very confident this is correct, it's not correct. If it is correct, it's because it's just by, not say by chance, but that is common. So it's still hallucinated.
Mm.
So big problem number one for CISOs I find is there's an anthropomorphization from their employees about, hey, it's being nice to me, it said it do it, I will trust it. In the case it's not, it's still software, it's still giving a bunch of mathematics and probability, so yes. And very common example, people say things like, hey, here's the answer, 2 plus 2 is 5. And they say, you're wrong. Oh, I'm sorry, let me do it again, 2 plus 2 is 6. Complete confidence, that stuff makes it very tricky to actually apply
Yeah,
your
really
basic
good point.
controls and
Yeah.
security. Another problem I've seen is the opposite. So I'm saying, hey, it's still software. Why can't the current tools work against this? You say to them, well, because the AI is very opaque. You can't actually inspect its code. It's trained on data that's proprietary that you can't interrogate. It's a bunch of mathematics, basically, for probability. It is very random. So I can give it the same response 100 times, 100 different outputs on those systems. Some correct, probably some of them not incorrect in the system itself. And the last one is overhype and promises. And I'll talk about AI security specifically. A lot of the focus on AI security, in my view, is looking at problems like how do I build bombs and how do I create Molotov cocktails. These are the most common examples people give to say, here's why AI is bad. You can get AI to persuade it to talk about bad topics. It's actually not that hard to do if you do
Mm.
some social engineering. Those things can be problematic, but are those the really high impact problems that a CISO is going to care about? In my experience, no. The most common problem CISOs tell me is, well, I have two problems. One is I need to know what the AI is doing in my organization. So I need to find it. I need to actually understand and profile and do a risk assessment of what this thing is doing. The second one is people deploying AI and it's touching upon other data sources and systems. And it may not, it may be, and I'm not knowing about it. What do I do about it? How do I assess and how do I validate these things? Those are the two big problems, and that will lead to high impact problems because data leakage, remote execution, like actually getting, cloud controlling the actual system themselves.
Mm.
So right now, if you look at the security space, everyone's talking about the high level stuff by saying, yes, I can get the AI to say bad stuff and it can output stuff that looks like it's real, it's not real in that system. But the real nitty gritty stuff is this AI is touching production systems or it's being used in a public facing manner. How do I build my threat model? How do I do my assessments? And then how do I actually validate and protect them?
Understood. So I guess you've got the headline grabbing ones are the yeah, I got AI to teach me how to make a bomb or something insane like that. But in reality, it's what's under the hood and what's going on beneath that layer there that could be the end of well the bigger problem, I guess.
Yeah, it really depends on the use case. So if I was in a company in the business of providing therapy software to vulnerable people,
Mm.
certain topics like that, yes, I would care much more about. But
Yeah.
talking about those sensitive controversial topics in my back-end code generation personal assistant, it's not that relevant to me. Like, I'm going to care more about is it to generate bad code without me knowing about it, and is it going to be malicious code versus I have a decision-making system for transactions, which I recommend you don't do, by the way. I've seen this before using AI, different use cases, different threat models, and different attack surfaces. Right now, a lot of the whole space is talking about the high level, not the high level, but the more reputational damage stuff, as opposed to the things that I think CISOs stay up at night about. Actually, this is touching upon very sensitive stuff. And if there was any other software, rumored AI, I would be very, very nervous. Or I need to apply controls and then have a good idea of visibility of risk. And I don't know place about it.
I got you. So with Mindgard specifically, then, how does this fit into the picture? How does Mindgard solve a problem?
Sure. So the problem is AI is deployed in companies, but you can't find it, you can't assess it, and you can't protect it in many different forms. Mindgard has a solution that allows companies to discover AI risk in terms of like shadow AI, we call it, to understand and actually enumerate the attack surface, which means is what can the attackers actually see? What do they know about your AI systems? The second part is then how do I do AI risk assessment and reporting? So I found a thing. How do I assess with some level of confidence that what is my risk and exposure to the AI itself? And the last was then protection by saying, okay, so I know where it is. I can discover the AI. I can assess it with some confidence. And now how do I protect it? Mindgard offers a solution that allows you to look at all three things here. So fundamentally, you can deploy AI like any other software you would do in the system.
Got you. So I guess it starts with the red teaming side of it to find out what you have, and then where the holes are, and then how to protect it.
Yes, it's good you mentioned red teaming. Again, not to go on a tangent, but the phrase AI red teaming is very, very misleading in my space. So red teaming
Yeah.
is about emulating how adversaries will achieve goals, and that it combines technical security, but also social security, social engineering, and all these kind of concepts. The phrase AI red teaming is really not focusing on the latter part. It's really about really AI pen testing or AI model testing and model evaluation, which is useful, but
Mhm.
it kind of loses the essence of red teaming. So and what we do at Mindgard is we actually try to we do blend actual red teaming system, which is in enterprise, how do I discover shadow AI and how do I profile that shadow AI in that system that's hidden away? Or I know what it is, I know what it's doing though. That's one part. The assessment piece is then what you might call the red teaming part. Combine the discovery and the profiling with the assessments. Okay, I know what this thing is, I know my risk exposure, and then how to build controls, how to validate defenses about it. So Mindgard looks at that life cycle.
That's a really good point, actually. I'm glad you mentioned the whole of the pen test versus the assessment and the red teaming whole space here, because that's a conversation even pre AI that we'd have with organizations and people in the space of, yes, I'm a red team operator. Well, are you? Do you do the whole no? So maybe it's more of something else, pen test, whatever it might be. So have you got maybe an example of like, what a true red team assessment in your world looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. I can give an example we did recently, which is the idea of a customer has an AI application that's saying this has gone live already, but we haven't done an assessment of it. Can you make sure it's okay? Then you come in, you would do reconnaissance. So you kind of figure out not just the model, but actually what does the model talk to? What's the use case? What's the scenario? Actually, is it public facing? Then you can start interrogating. So you can combine other type of security tools, and I think of other security techniques like AppSec, web security. For the AI part, okay, I found the AI targets. That's the first step. Okay, then you can start interrogating the AI by saying things like, well, do you recognize other languages? That's useful to know. It's not a problem. It's hey, it's useful to know possibly in the future. Ask you play the game of 20 questions. What do you do? Are you bigger than a loaf of bread? In comparisons, gives you a good idea of the shape of what is the AI, how does it think, what is it talking to, but also things like, well, if I know it can do translation and recognize certain esoteric characters, I could use this to my advantage and kind of bypass systems because AI applications have like guardrails, like basically firewalls in front of them. They block pretty low effort attacks. If you know things like, hey, it can do different languages, let me put my attack in another language, so your guardrail is not going to work because it's only designed to look at English specifically. Then you do a reconnaissance, you find the attack surface, you then figure out the type of threats that are possible from the attack surface and tools and leverage. You then perform them. And then at the end, you say, okay, now we found these things, and then how do we meet them? Okay, here are the controls that you put in place itself. This is very much more like a true red team engagement that you do, but with AI, in enterprise setting of CISOs, they want a tool to find the AI, which our solution does, then have a tool that does the assessment. So why it's required can be done automatically as opposed to just a person doing it themselves, and the third party's recommendations. So one of the great things I love about companies like Mindgard and others is that we have tooling to help support this itself. But ours is kind of the true from discovery of AI through the assessment of risk, then to the protection of AI defenses. We have a solution that allows you to look at all three.
Got you. So it's that full life cycle piece rather than we found a load of holes, here they are, see you later type
We do.
thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, got you. Okay, cool, nice. And did I read that there's you have an edge in the sense that you have researchers from the university and the field continuously adding to your technologies as well?
That's right. So we kind of have there's two different strands of research. So I took half my researchers from my university to my company with me. I went to London. So we're based in London and Boston in this case. So again, we brought them in. They're in the company themselves, the PhDs, which is great. But also we have a strategic collaboration with Lancaster University, and there's a large set of doctoral research in security that I personally train in the
Mm.
space because I love helping people. Fundamentally, we have a collaboration where we can look at some of the biggest problems in AI security, and then how do we put that into solutions and to how to help customers themselves. So we kind of cover the problems of like next year in like 2 or 3 years with the university lab, but in the R&D lab at Mindgard, which has some actually pretty heavy hitters. There's some pretty well-known offensive security researchers we have, like the head of Duo Labs, for example, is
Wow.
in our company. People like Randori, combined with AI security researchers, taking kind of blending both the offensive security research piece, but also a practitioner's piece, and also the AI security research themselves. So thankfully, you get both. So we get close to where the customer problems are and building research for them, but also looking at the problems that are manifesting now in space.
That's cool. It really bridges the gap there, which is, sometimes you don't often see that in organizations.
No, and especially in the space, AI changes so quickly. You can look at AI startups. One of the reinforcement points is that yes, you need to have a very big research focus because every month things change. If you don't keep up with that, that's quite problematic. So for us at Mindgard, we are pretty research heavy,
Yeah.
and that will not change anytime soon. But of course, complemented with having like a big engineering team to actually build products as well.
Nice. And the people you've got in there at the moment, are they people you've kind of like known through industry and brought in, or?
It's a mixture, yes. It's not so in the AI security space for the I say the old guard. The guard isn't that old. It's a pretty small space in terms of actually working in AI security for the last few years before it became very hyped up. There are very few people in the world, I would say, who really do AI security both. Typically, cyber people get into AI or vice versa. Actually, both of them is actually I could probably name probably less than 20 people, I would say, do so. It goes up over time, of course, but a lot of them are really cyber folk getting into AI now, applying the craft, which is useful, that's super useful, but actual people who spent like a decade in this space is very, very small. The other one is, yes, it's from industry, from research circles, and different type of people who basically the mission of the company is to protect the world's AI and secure the world's AI, and again, different type of facets of that.
Yeah, it sounds like a vision people can really, really genuinely buy into. So looking ahead then, what's exciting for yourself about this field?
Every month is different, which is great. New technology, new adoption, new usage. I know in the news cycles, there's lots of discussions of AI for better and worse in different forms. But the thing that's hard to deny is that people are deploying in some way AI into workflows in different forms. Some are deploying it um, not as strictly as they may have to. There's a lot of pilots coming out as well to define the use cases and value, which I talked about before. But the inertia of enterprise tends to be things move at a certain pace. So a lot of the projects that kicked off a couple of years ago or a year ago were using LLMs and RAG databases. Those things are now in production. People are deploying what you might call agentic workflows for helping the work supply the workflow chains. Those things are now in production. It's not a bad bet to make that what percentage of the world's software has AI inside it and new apps. Let's say it's like 0.5%. I'd probably say that's about that. Forget about the hype, I'd say 0.5% of all applications probably have some sort of LLM attached to it. Think of all enterprise software you might use. There's now like an AI assistant you're starting to see
Yeah,
manifesting.
yeah.
Over time, that's to go from 0.5 to 1 to 5 to 10 to eventually 100% because it's kind of a feature of the application itself. So what's exciting in the space is that yes, it's going to be everywhere, which is good for actually giving value. But the worry then is also that it's a great attack surface. Like for attackers and adversaries, that's going to be really a playground for them, which that worries me a lot. What reassures us more people in this space, there's always new attacks coming out, but there's also new defenses and new ways of thinking about this problem as well. I hope in the future people will be trying to treat AI like they do like any other software and assets. And even like, whether you anthropomorphize and think like a person, when you have a person in an organization, you have controls, you have an interview process, you have check-ins, you have monitoring. some extent in terms of what using things. Okay, you don't have keys to everything. AI can go in that form, or AI is still software. I have controls already. I already have a process for security testing and assessments and reporting and my compliance controls. You apply to the things as well. So I think once some of this hype gets a bit more settled and you find real valuable use cases, when some exist now, others are still in process with the technology changing quickly, then we'll get to a point to say, okay, now this thing's deployed, we're being rushed to do so. Now let's make sure we have security controls in place. They're repeatable, they're reproducible, but also then I can have a steady state of using it.
Understood. Yeah, in fairness, that's a conversation we have fairly often around. We're so early on this journey here that we are doing everything we can to safeguard and investigate and research, but we kind of don't know where it's going to land just yet. So we need to be adaptable as the years go on. And I guess fast forwarding to 2, 3 years down the line, where do you see Mindgard specifically?
So Mindgard is growing pretty quickly. I expect we'll still be growing quite aggressively by then. Yeah, there's lots more uptake in AI security. More companies have AI and they have more concerns about this. We are going to be expanding. We're a global company about this, and we have a whole set of solution spaces coming out across the three facets of AI discovery, AI risk assessment, AI protection. We have those things, and positioning ourselves to be like more on the forefront of AI security, given our background in security, but also AI security research themselves. We expect we will be a CISO household name. Obviously, household name of the public, but I hope CISOs are saying, oh, okay, yes, there are specialists looking at the security problems within AI, and my gosh, and at the time will be one of the ones that they will come calling for.
Love to see it. It's certainly on that trajectory. And I just guess to close this out, I know we've darted around a few different areas here, and thank you for fielding those questions. But if you were to give one piece of advice for an organization that's adopting AI pretty heavily, more and more as the day goes on, where would you go with that?
I think the main thing I'd say is when you have a conversation about AI, cross out the word AI in your mental model and just say software or app, and then ask
Okay.
the same question and say things like, I want to deploy X to my data set. What do I need to do to control it or to secure it? That will make the conversations easier and also make sense that, okay, oh, it makes sense that yes, the AI is doing X in this use case. I need to have these controls in place to make sure it doesn't do 1, 2, and 3. Then you can't question the conversation saying, can my current controls and tools do this? Yes or no? Some cases, yes. Other cases saying, actually, it doesn't. So I need a new type of tooling or new type of training to help do this. A lot of the point is that AI is still software fundamentally. A new attack surface and it causes a whole bunch of problems. But actually, it's still software. So replace the word AI with another technology that you're familiar with and ask the same question to your teams again. I think it will demystify a lot of the problems, and then it'll answer by saying, okay, we've gone from the high level, what is this thing, to, okay, I have concrete problems. Now I can actually go off and investigate further. What do I need? Whether it's training, whether it's solutions, or whether it's just I need to think about my policies in place.
That's an awesome take. I think the key word there is demystifying, taking it away from this, what the hell is AI, to here are the problems it presents. Well, Peter, thank you for jumping on. I really appreciate the time and everything. I'm sure this will be well received, if not slightly terrifying. But yeah, glad to have had the chat.
Great, thank you, James.
Thanks.